And good evening from Jerusalem again, where the Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu has said the country will respond with what he calls a new level of force if Hamas decides to launch rockets across the border. The warning comes after Egypt helped broker a truce between the militant group and Israel, which began overnight. After 11 days of heavy bombardment, those displaced in Gaza during the fighting were finally able to return to their homes, or in many cases what was left of their homes. Market traders returned to their stalls, the streets busy for the first time after nearly 2 weeks of being virtually empty. Here in Jerusalem, prayers at Al-Aqsa Mosque began as they would every other Friday. A large crowd of Palestinians then gathered and started chanting anti-Israeli slogans, some waving Hamas flags. Tension continued to build between Israeli forces and those calling for an end to the aggression. Israeli police then fired stun grenades towards demonstrators and began dispersing crowds who threw rocks and other objects at the soldiers, with both sides blaming one another for causing the unrest. It's just another sign of how fragile the situation is here.
We harm most of Hamas's capabilities far beyond what their commanders imagined. They received 11 days and nights of great blows and a huge crush that changed the rules of the game. If Hamas think we will tolerate a drip of rockets, it is wrong. We will respond with a new level of force to any show of aggression against the communities surrounding Gaza or anywhere else in the state of Israel. What happened in the past will no longer take place.
Right, let's go to the United States now, where I'm joined by Djerejian, the former US ambassador to Israel. Thank you very much for joining us. I just want to talk about Joe Biden and where he is on the Middle East. The ceasefire, very welcome, of course, but huge problems remain. Is Joe Biden interested in the Middle East?
I think he's interested in the Middle East, but I think he doesn't want to get embroiled in the Middle East like so many of his predecessors that deflected American presidents from other priorities they had. But as we well know, the Middle East has this unique ability of drawing U.S. presidents and administrations tightly into whatever crises erupt there. So he cannot escape it. Whether he's interested in it or not, he cannot escape it. But let me say one thing about President Biden's policy on this. When he made his statement, I believe yesterday, on the ceasefire, he said something to me that's very interesting. He said, both Palestinians and Israelis equally deserve to live safely and securely and to enjoy equal measures of freedom, prosperity, and democracy. And he said there's a genuine opportunity to make progress. Now, is that a substantial hint that he is going and his administration are going to get involved in some sort of search for a solution to this problem or not? We don't know.
Well, it's very interesting. And is he saying that because there are increasing number of Democrats, it seems, and correct me if I'm wrong, who are showing support for the Palestinian cause?
Yes, and I think within the Democratic Party, this is a new development. I think there are two very interesting developments here. It's what you just cited, that within the Democratic Party, there are people like Bernie Sanders, other Democrats who really prioritize humanitarian issues and a search for a peaceful settlement. And they're taking their distance, even calling for a policy, not Israel right or wrong, but Israel right. We support Israel wrong. We don't support. And then even suggesting limiting U.S. assistance, be it military, economic, to Israel. This is a new development that's occurring. And the other development that I think is equally important is where you are in Israel and in the occupied territories, is that this intra-communal strife between Israeli Arab citizens and Israeli Jews These are two very significant factors that I think are going to define how the parties move forward after this ceasefire.
Now, I was reading earlier that you, I think, were ambassador or certainly involved in the time of the 93 Oslo Accords. Now, do you think, I mean, it's a huge leap we're going to make here, but do you think, well, let me rephrase it. How far away do you think? How far is Joe Biden away, do you think, from anything like that? It just seems we're so far away from anything like that at the moment.
Well, Joe Biden has very consistently stated that he is for a two-state solution. But that two-state solution has become so elusive now because of the facts on the ground, the continuing occupation, the Israeli settlements, and the Trump administration's interregnum in this crisis, if you will, in which they gave Bibi Netanyahu full support for whatever he wanted to do in terms of his right-wing coalition and expanding Israel's presence in the West Bank, in East Jerusalem, on the Golan Heights, and the decision to move the American embassy to Jerusalem. So Bibi Netanyahu really exploited that for his own policy ends and to monopolize, not monopolize, but to consolidate his own standing with the right wing in Israel. And right now, what he's doing on this Hamas crisis is that he's gained a little more time. As you well know, he was on his way out with a new coalition going to be formed in Israel. This crisis has given him another breathing room for I don't know how long to remain prime minister and avoid the judicial system.
Okay, Edward Djerejian, we appreciate your time. Thank you very much indeed.